So the day is finally here where NBA fans across the league are going to have to pack it up because OKC is here, they're great, and quite frankly, way better than what you really think. Now, as I normally do, just a little bit of a backstory. Last season, one of the best storylines in the NBA was the rise of the Oklahoma City Thunder, the second youngest team in the NBA, surprisingly finding themselves with the #1 seed in a very competitive Western Conference. A huge reason for this was their superstar Shai Gilgeous-Alexander cementing himself as not only as an MVP candidate, but also as a top 5 player in the NBA, Jalen Williams emerging as a quality second option, and the debut of Chet Holmgren living up to everyone's expectations and probably a little bit more because I do believe what Chet did last year defensively gets swept underneath the rug in large part because how dominant Wemby was on that side of the floor. But in essence, OKC found themselves with an amazing big three, a really great supporting cast, and an underrated coaching staff that propelled themselves once more with the #1 record in the Western Conference. Now, unfortunately, the success was short-lived in the postseason as they were knocked out in the second round by the Dallas Mavericks. And a lot of people attributed their inability to get deeper into the postseason due to their inexperience, the really wonky fit with Josh Giddey, and also the team not having enough size. Outside of Chet Holmgren, there really wasn't any other big on the team. And a lot of that was addressed during this offseason as OKC moved off of Josh Giddey for Alex Caruso out in Chicago and signed Isaiah Hartenstein from the New York Knicks, making these easily some of the most two impactful offseason additions in the entire NBA, and quite frankly has really turned a already really good team to historic levels. And I don't mean that casually. I genuinely believe that this team will continue down this path of historic dominance. Now, why exactly do I say this? Well, OKC to start the season has a record of 19-5 with a top 10 offense in the #1 ranked defense, which has resulted in them in having a net rating of +12. Now, for those out there who don't understand how crazy it is to have a net rating of +12, effectively, statistically speaking, this is the best team that we have seen since the Chicago Bulls in 1997. That's how dominant they've been. Bro, this is actually ridiculous. As I said that last statement, I wasn't 100% sure, like just uttering those words. I didn't really feel that confident. So I had to double check my work and just make sure like what I'm saying is true. Like this is the best team statistically since Michael Jordan. That sounds ridiculous. The Michael Jordan Bulls? That sounds crazy. But no, it is. Better than the Golden State Warriors in 2016, even when they added Kevin Durant, better than any LeBron team, better than the Shaq and Kobe Lakers, better than the Spurs. Like this is by far the best team that we have seen since the Chicago Bulls being led by Michael Jordan in the late 90s. That is ridiculous. Now, how exactly are they doing this? Well, on the offensive side of the floor, a lot of things that we saw last year, we're still seeing this year. They're just turning it up a little bit. Shai is still Shai. He's giving you 30 balls every single night to go along with his 5 to 6 assists and rebounds. Easily the aspect of his game that has really matured the most is his passing and playmaking. He's finally found a way to properly leverage his scoring ability into getting open opportunities for his teammates. And to go along with it, of course, that 30 ball is a constant mixture of attacking the basket, getting to the free throw line, and a money mid-range that would make Chilltown really, really proud. But this season, the addition to his three-point shot has really intrigued a lot of people. We saw this in the preseason, didn't necessarily know it was going to carry over into the regular season, and early on, just to be honest with you, it didn't look that good. However, over the past month of basketball, it's creeped up to around 36 or 37%, with his three-point shooting being much more impactful, and he seems way more confident when he is shooting those shots. And at that point, we are effectively talking about him just being one of the best scorers the league has seen over the past 25 years when he is hitting his three ball pretty consistently. Then you have J-Dub, who again is taking the right steps in the right direction of being a secondary option. The last month of basketball, he's looked really, really good, giving around 23 points per game, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and the shooting splits across the board are really, really great. Finishing at the rim just as great as Shai, also has a really great mid-range jump shot, and his three ball has always been there throughout his entire career. The one thing that really stands out to me when it comes to J-Dub offensively to start the season is his confidence. Now that Giddey is no longer on the team, OKC is much more willing to just give J-Dub the keys to the offense when Shai is off the floor. And again, this is where a lot of the maturity has really been seen with him, especially over the past handful of games. J-Dub is getting in his bag and he looks confident when he's doing so. Add in Lu Dort's three-point shooting that seems to be sustainable because he's still shooting 39% from behind the arc. Then you have Isaiah Joe and Aaron Wiggins who are hitting their three balls. Isaiah Hartenstein is a really underrated passer at the 5 position. And even though Alex Caruso and Case and Wallace, they're not knocking down their three balls. They still bring in a lot of offensive value in very other ways, especially with their playmaking on the defensive side of the floor that translates into easy buckets in transition. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't the perfect offensive team. I think they shoot too many threes, and quite frankly, I don't believe that we're going to truly see the real ceiling of what this team looks like on the offensive side of the floor, or really just in a general sense, until Chet Holmgren can come back and he play alongside Isaiah Hartenstein, because I think that's when a lot of things are really going to be unlocked. But until then, this is a team that can still see themselves playing at highs that could rival any offense in the NBA this season. But the biggest difference maker for what this team really looks like is on the other side of the floor, and I am talking about the defensive end. Defensively, this team is so good, it really and truly prompted me to make this video, and quite frankly, this is the way that they beat teams pretty often. Even when they're struggling offensively, OKC can really hang their hat on the idea that they can just lock you up and really shut the door on anyone. Just for some quick fun facts before we get into the film, because this team is really, really good defensively. OKC forces 19 turnovers a game. Of their 24 games they played early on this season, 10 of them they've been able to hold their opponent to under 100 points. Out of those 10, 4 of them they've been under 90 points. And teams shoot a league low 42.7% from the field against OKC and only 33.6% from behind the arc. But what's possibly even more impressive is that OKC not only has the best defense in the NBA, but with a defensive rating of 104, depending on where you're looking at, maybe 103, that means that they are 9 to 10 points better than league average. Think about that for a second. 9 to 10 points better than what the league average is. That means that this is the best defense that we have seen since the Bill Russell era Boston Celtics. Better than peak Duncan San Antonio Spurs, better than peak Ben Wallace Detroit Pistons, better than Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen Chicago Bulls, and even better than the 08 Celtics. That's how good they are right now. And I would go as far as to say, because how offensive leaning this era of basketball is, that this is the greatest defense that the NBA has ever seen if they continue down this path. Now, I know you may be asking, how the hell is OKC this great defensively? And it is for a plethora of reasons. This team plays hard, they switch, they rotate, and quite frankly, they just give a damn on that side of the floor. When you watch the extra effort, playing in the passing lanes, diving for balls, boxing out consistently, even from non-bigs, it is really enjoyable to watch them play defense because everyone is on a string, and again, they are just giving ultimate effort. The Thunder can quite literally go 8 to 9 players deep with individual talents who give it their all on the defensive side of the floor. Anybody who sits here and tell you that no team in the NBA plays defense, tell them to watch OKC. But at the core of their principles, they do two things really, really well. The first being pressuring ball handlers. And I have to say this, I can show you endless highlights of like Lou Dort, Alex Caruso, Shea, shout out to Case and Wallace because he gives a lot of really good effort picking up ball handlers basically full court. I can give you endless highlights of them just ripping the ball out of people's hands or playing in passing lanes, giving extra effort. However, I have to give a really big shout out to Isaiah Hartenstein, one of the biggest and most underrated pickups throughout the entire season. And even though I knew he was really good defensively out in New York, and I do believe that he is just one of the more underrated players in the NBA, I did not know that he was this good defensively. And again, he follows a lot of principles that we see with these pesky on-ball defenders in pick and roll sets. A lot of teams in today's league, they heavily depend on the idea of operating in pick and roll sets and trying to find advantages, but Isaiah Hartenstein just doesn't give that to them at all. He meets them at the level, sometimes riding ball handlers all the way to the basket, corrals them, shows them length, and just completely forces them into bad passes. But the one thing he does really consistently, and it's something really small, but it's very impactful, and it is just quick jabs and swipes at ball handlers when they're trying to find the advantage. And the best example of this is when they matched up against the New Orleans Pelicans, where you had multiple ball handlers trying to find advantages, but Isaiah Hartenstein just gave a little bit of effort, showed at the level, swiped at the ball handler, made them retreat or kind of double back a little bit, which not only completely disrupted the flow of the set, but also gave more opportunity for the initial defender to recover back on the ball handler after the screen, which again completely disrupted any type of advantages that you would normally see from any type of pick and roll sets. Now, I want to be clear, this isn't just a Hartenstein thing. Everyone in the team does it. Anytime where someone is driving, if you have the ability to dig and tag on the ball handler, especially when the defender is riding the hip and kind of just taking away the offhand, it is easily translating into turnovers that OK OKC is feeding off of every single time. But the biggest reason why I want to highlight Isaiah Hartenstein is because getting this type of effort from your 5 really is a difference maker. Not only does it, again, put you in a position for the initial defender to get back in place so they can guard the ball handler so you're not rotating and switching, but also it forces ball handlers to make reads that they're not comfortable with. Now, to be fair, when this type of defensive scheme is being employed on like Jokic and Luka, they can make cross-court passes pretty consistently, but that's Jokic and Luka. Most of these players in the NBA cannot do this, and this has been like an ongoing thing that I've really focused on over the past 2 to 3 years, where there are these ball handlers who really aren't ball handlers who have the ability to operate an offense just because they're not being pressured accordingly. But OKC takes it to another step, and when you have your 5 buying into that concept, it really does change the trajectory of what your team can look like in terms of giving up advantages that normally most teams just concede on pretty routinely. And the second concept that they believe in is constantly having someone rotate to give backline help. Even if they do concede the switch, which a lot of times they don't, but even if they do, when Hartenstein finds himself on the perimeter or even Chet does, there is always rotation that is there from other players. In particular with J-Dub, because he spent a lot of time at the power forward position last season when they used to play small ball lineups much more frequently, he is effectively accustomed to making these type of rotations. And of course, when you have players like Lou Dort and Alex Caruso who are just willingly giving you extra effort and throwing their body and trying to make the stop at the rim, you're always going to have plays where you have smaller players who are 6'6", 6'5", 6'3", making stops at the basket, blocking shots, and giving you some form of rim protection. It's actually really, really great. Now again, once more, you find the right ball handler and passer, it may not work out in your favor. Luka was able to find Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively rolling to the basket pretty often, and when a guard is rotating over, that's just 2 easy buckets. But the biggest reason why I feel as if like this really isn't that big of an issue is because we have yet to see Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein on the floor with one another. In those incidences, instead of it being a guard or Lou Dort or 6'6" J-Dub rotating over, imagine Isaiah Hartenstein or Chet, who are pretty good defending the perimeter, or at least tagging and blitzing and just showing and recovering. Imagine the rotation coming from another 7-footer. When that happens is when the league is really, really, really I'm gonna tell you right now, I've seen a lot of footage of this team. They are preparing for the day that Hartenstein and Chet are on the floor with one another. And when that day happens, you're cooked. We're all cooked. I'm gonna be honest with you, we're cooked. I'm here to tell you today, depending on how Chet's injury is, because he has a hip injury, who knows if he's gonna be able to fully recover from that. We're all praying for you, Chet. But the day that comes, we're cooked. I've seen this team make the right reads defensively way too many times. We're talking about guards making the right reads and having to jump extra high in passing lane to try to tip the ball just to get the steal. Bro, Chet won't have to do that. He just puts his hands up. He's going to get it stealed like that. Hartenstein isn't going to have to do that. He just puts his hands up. He's going to get stealed just like that. Guards rotating over, giving extra effort, throwing their body at lobs and rim protection. Chet's not going to have to do that. He just rotates over, put his hands up, and that's that. Chet last year was already one of the best rim protectors in the NBA. It's going to be, it's tough. It's tough for you. And the fact that Chet is a 3-point shooter, so that means that the floor spacing really isn't going to be cooked. Your 2 best shot creators can also get busy in the mid-range, so they don't even have to like constantly get to the rim to get easy looks. No. They both are shooting around 45, 48, 50% on mids on SGA and J-Dub. And then as soon as Caruso starts making his threes, Isaiah Joe, Lou Dort, Wiggins, all of them start making threes as well. We're done. We're done. What's even crazier is that when they've only had one big, just one big, they've only lost 2 games. Out of their 5 losses, 3 of them came when Chet and Hartenstein weren't in the lineup. So when they have a big in the lineup, bro, they've only lost twice so far this season, and they've yet to have both of them in the lineup. And I'm gonna go as far as to say, I genuinely believe, even though record-wise they're not the best team, I genuinely believe that OKC, to start the season off, they are by far the best team in the NBA, because they have really figured it out on both sides of the floor. And even when they have an off shooting night, they can just kill you defensively. And I do believe a lot of it is sustainable. By the end of the season, I might make another video or 2 just discussing how they were able to just hold another team to under 100 points, because I do think that's going to be a reoccurring recurring theme throughout this year. But hey, those are my thoughts. I wanted to give a lot of love to an OKC team that is not getting nowhere near enough talk and praise at a mainstream media level. It is crazy to me that they do not have another national televised game. Once the NBA Cup is done, they will not have another national televised game until January 29th. I think that is criminal, and I think more people should be discussing how good this OKC Thunder team really is and what they do on the defensive side of the floor. So if you enjoy videos like this, please let me know in the comment section below. You can share this video as much as you possibly can, because if you want breakdowns like this, I have no problem at all giving more breakdowns like this, a little bit more in depth moving forward as the season progresses. And until next time, I'll see you all later. Peace.